Welcome to another edition of the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you're having a great start to your weekend, your Friday. Braves baseball. Braves baseball is actually here for 17 straight days. So if you're tired of the Braves having frequent off days, well, hey, this is the stretch of the season for you as they begin a series against the San Diego Padres at Truist Park in Atlanta. And as always, it's fun to be back with Stephen Tolbert. I call him and mean it sincerely, one of the best minds when it comes to covering the Braves. Stephen, always a pleasure. Good to talk with you again, sir.
What's up, Shawn? Yeah, buddy, good to be back on with you. We got a fun episode tonight. Obviously, we've got a very fun series with the Padres coming up that we're going to preview. A couple of things to talk about, and then we've got a special guest at the end of the episode that we did an interview with. So, always fun to do these with you, and you're 100% correct. We've got a lot of Braves baseball coming up, so no more off days for a while. Good and bad thing, but a lot of Braves baseball, so we appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as Stephen talked about, we mentioned earlier this week, Stephen himself mentioned earlier this week, and he was absolutely correct. We were going to have some guests here, in the upcoming weeks, talking some Braves baseball, offering different perspectives. And I think that we got a great one for this episode. ESPN's Buster Olney will actually be joining the show a bit later on in the episode, talking about the Braves start to the season and a lot of different subjects when it comes to, the Braves and how they'll continue to progress throughout the season and beyond. It was really fun getting to talk to him. We hit on a lot of different subjects, so he will be with us a bit later on in the episode, but really excited about talking with Buster, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, the Braves were on Sunday Night Baseball last week, obviously, with the Mets, and then they're actually on Sunday Night Baseball again this week against the Padres. Obviously, Buster is an ESPN guy. He's been an ESPN insider for a long time now, and so the week where we were kind of sandwiched in between two Sunday night games felt like the week to have him on. And so, yeah, great to be able to talk with him. Obviously, it's he's been an insider in baseball for a number of years. He's got a lot of connections throughout the game, knows a lot of people. And it's also good for our listeners to be able to hear different voices, other opinions, kind of different perspectives, people that maybe aren't so close to the team on a daily basis as we are. That kind of perspective change can be good. So, yeah, excited about it. Yeah, very grateful for Buster, obviously, to take the time to do it, and happy that our listeners are going to be able to enjoy what he has to say.
Absolutely. And he had plenty of very insightful and straightforward thoughts when it came to the Braves. And that'll be, here a bit later on in the episode. But before we get to that, I want to talk about this series against the Padres, which I think is a, pretty important series for the Braves. They are 6-2 over, their past 8 games. If you go back to, where they struggled a bit on that road trip out west. But, we saw, the pitching has continued to be magnificent. We saw some signs of life from the offense as well, especially Tuesday's game where Matt Olson and Michael Harris II went deep. We talked about that the last time we were on the show, Stephen. But what really stands out to me for this Friday, opening this series, is that coming off yesterday's off day, we were hoping to get some reinforcements back. Obviously, Austin Riley coming off the injury that's kept him out all week, the tightness in the side. Pierce Johnson as well. We were hoping to get back on Friday. It seems as if both of them are still going to be unavailable on Friday. But the other big name, of course, after a needed off day, a rare but needed off day on Wednesday, was Ronald Acuna Jr. He is back in the lineup. But your thoughts specifically on Pierce Johnson and Austin Riley and kind of where we stand as far as when we might get them back?
Yeah, the lineups dropped about 10-15 minutes before we started recording. So obviously no Austin Riley for Friday night's game. And it's not great. Obviously, you don't want your star third baseman to miss a fourth consecutive game, obviously, especially when one comes after an off day like this one is. So we're gonna monitor it for sure. If he's not back by tomorrow, I think the chances of him maybe doing an IL stint, a backdated IL stint, probably go up pretty significantly. Once you're more than 5 days into where you're not on the IL but you're not playing, it's tough to kind of continue from there. So I'm hoping we get to avoid that. It sounded, the last update we got on Wednesday it was unlikely to happen, but you never know. I mean, these, especially when you're talking about pulled muscles in your side, anything can happen. Sean Murphy's been out for 2 months almost because of it. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully they can avoid an IL stint, but they might not be able to. It's not always. And the Braves are going to, obviously the Braves are going to be extremely conservative with their approach here. You're not, you can't win anything in May. So they're going to be, they're going to take it slow and make sure it's right. And then with Pierce Johnson, uh, Dave O'Brien of the Athletic just reported a few minutes ago that he was thought that he might be back for this game, for Friday's game against the Padres, but they're going to do a kind of the one more day thing that they've done a lot over the years, where they just give him one more day. So it looks like Pierce will be activated for tomorrow's game. So they'll still have him for most of the series, which is obviously very important. The Braves are going through a tough stretch here where they're not going to have any off days. They're going to play a lot of consecutive games. So they're going to need their depth, and they're going to need it kind of all of their depth. So it'll be good to have him back. Hopefully Austin gets back tomorrow too. That would be a huge boost. And like you said, Acuna's back in there tonight. It was just an off day for him. So yeah, the Braves need their depth back. They've got a lot of games, consecutive games coming up. So it would be good to get everybody back.
And you have to feel confident about tonight's matchup. You got Max Fried on the mound for the Braves, Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres. The Braves, especially with Acuna back in the lineup, you would think that they would feel good about their chances tonight. But Steven, something that stands out about the series when it comes to San Diego, it's been their offense a bit more than their pitching. I know their pitching overall has they just came off a tough series against Colorado. It's kind of been inconsistent this year, but they are going to start getting some of their quality pitching back, and it's going to be right there to face the Braves. After tonight, you've got Bryce Elder versus Yu Darvish, and then likely some combination of Joe Musgrove as well as Dylan Cease. So that is 3 straight quality arms that the Braves are going to face Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You certainly hope they get the job done, but they're going to face another tough stretch of pitching against the Padres as the Padres rotation looks to get healthier.
Yeah, Musgrove's been out with elbow stuff for about 15 days. He's scheduled to come off on Sunday. I listened to an interview with him, and he sounded pretty confident. I think, something would have to drastically change for him not to be the guy on Sunday. So it looks like it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be for Saturday, Sunday, Monday part of this series. It's going to be Darvish, Musgrove, and Cease, their 3 best pitchers. So that's just kind of par for the course for Atlanta lately. They faced 3 guys in the Cubs series who all had ERAs under 1 or under 2. It's just kind of the stretch they've been on lately, where if there's a good pitching team out there, it seems like the Braves have played them, and they've faced the best guys on that team. So it'll be a fun series. Obviously, Max goes tonight. At least on paper, that looks like a pretty good matchup for the Braves. And then after that, Darvish versus Elder is probably advantage Padres, and then probably a toss-up with Musgrove and Cease versus Ronaldo and Sale. So it could be a fun series. If the offense wants to come alive and score 10 runs a game, I won't complain. But the quality pitching they're going to face, it's probably unlikely. It's probably going to be a bunch of close games, which Braves fans should be pretty used to by this point.
Absolutely. And, something that stands out, I had mentioned, that when it comes to the Padres offense, them and the Braves have been kind of identical. Steven, I know that you dived into the numbers a little bit. I'll let you, speak on that in a moment. But, you've got, the fact that Fernando Tatis Jr., Jake Cronenworth, Jurickson Profar for the Padres is doing his best impression of Marcell Ozuna this year for the Braves, but their offense has been kind of, hand in hand when it comes to, or kind of, step for step with the Braves in terms of overall production. But one thing that stands out is about San Diego's offense. It's not necessarily all that powerful, but they pull the ball and put the ball in play a lot. And they just acquired Luis Arraez, who, we know is one of the best contact hitters in baseball. The point that I'm getting at is they have the 4th best strikeout rate, or the 4th lowest strikeout rate among teams in baseball. I don't necessarily think we've talked enough about how good the Braves defense has been this year. I think the Braves defense has been one of the best in baseball. It's certainly helped our pitching staff and is night and day compared to last year. That defense is certainly going to be put to the test with the Padres offense that's going to put the ball in play quite a bit. It's really going to be important for that defense for the Braves to continue to be elite, especially with, the quality pitching they're going to be facing when you flip the script.
Yeah, I was looking it up before obviously, I was looking up earlier, just can do some research for the series. And there's only 2 teams in baseball that have a 111 WRC plus as a team. And those 2 teams are the Braves and the Padres. And, it is funny when you look at it. I mean, Jurickson Profar is leading the way for the Padres, and Marcell Ozuna is leading the way for the Braves. Both teams have stars that are not doing well. Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts have both had really rough starts to the year. Obviously, the Braves they have had their own problems with getting their stars going. So there's a lot of similarities. I think the Braves are more talented offense. Obviously getting Acuna back in there. The Braves aren't going to have Riley tonight. They still don't have Murphy. So I think the Padres are healthier, but I think overall, in terms of talent, the Braves are probably a better team. But yeah, it is funny looking at the two teams, how they've kind of mirrored each other offensively with a guy maybe no one expected to leading the way, and then some stars struggling. So so this series might come down to which stars break out, which offense breaks out. Or it just could be kind of more of the same, where it's low scoring pitching matchups, and whoever makes the last couple plays of the game ends up winning. And Braves fans should be pretty used to that, because that's pretty much the exact same game they've played for the last month.
Absolutely. But we can go through all the different numbers. We can go through all the different, matchups and things such as that. Again, I think, even though the Braves and Padres offense have been pretty much neck and neck all season, even with Manny Machado and Xander Bogaerts and with Austin Riley out, I still think that the Braves, probably have a bit higher ceiling, but that starts with Ronald Acuna Jr. and Steven, a rare off day again on Wednesday. We know that he's, kind of been scuffling at times at the plate, still making hard contact, but especially with the quality pitching that the Braves are going to be facing, Saturday on, it's time for Ronald Acuna Jr. to really step up. I believe they had played 17 straight games. It would be magnificent if Ronald can really start to be himself once again. Matt Olson, obviously coming off that Cubs series, it'd be great if Michael Harris II could support as well. Marcell Ozuna keeping up his hot hitting, but it's the Braves playing the level of offense that they're capable of starts with Ronald Acuna Jr. He's their most dynamic offensive player. You really hope he gets going, and hopefully the past 2 days off have given him the ability to really get focused in and start playing at his normal level, which is comparable to anybody in baseball.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. The Braves have had more off days than anybody in baseball, between just scheduled off days and rainouts. And they've played the fewest amount of games in baseball. No other team has played fewer games than the Braves so far. And I was thinking about it. That's fantastic for the pitchers. Obviously, it's more days off. It's being able to use your best guys more often, just because you've got built-in days off in the schedule. But I do think maybe that's been a detriment to the offense. Sometimes the best thing you can have for your offense is consistent, games played. Just get into a rhythm, and if you're fighting it at the plate like the Braves have, and like Acuna has for a lot of the year, all these off days can be a bit detrimental. I do wonder if we get to a stretch where they play a lot of games in a row. Maybe the pitching backs up a little bit just out of workload, but maybe the offense picks up, because it's guys can get in a rhythm. They're just every day they're playing, and so I am interested to see. But yeah, Acuna's been he's definitely been uh, a few steps below the guy we saw last year. Last year he had a 170 WRC plus for the entire season. Really never slumped in any month, which was kind of the incredible thing about the year he had. This year he's at like a 106 WRC plus, which is obviously just leagues below what his talent level is. So the batted ball data has been better than his results have been, but even the batted ball data is a step below where it was last year. So yeah, really interested to see if the off day kind of gets him going. If playing all these games in a row kind of gets him and the rest of the offense going, get into a rhythm. We'll see. Obviously the Braves need it. The pitching is not going to throw 7 innings of one-run ball all the time. You need the offense to start carrying some weight at some point. So, maybe it's tonight. Maybe it starts tonight. Maybe, Acuna goes 3 for 4, 4 for 4, a couple homers, and just really gets going. Olson, Ozuna, obviously they're still missing Riley and Murphy, but if the offense wants to go out and score 10 runs, I'll take it. I'm not going to complain.
Absolutely. And coming off that Cubs series, you hope that the momentum continues on for the Braves to be able to get another series win. But of course, in this series, the Braves will be once again playing on Sunday Night Baseball. And ESPN's Buster Olney has had the opportunity to really see the Braves up close over the past couple of weeks. I had the pleasure of talking with Buster, about the Braves start to the season, how it's been their pitching instead of their offense that has really been the source of their success. We talk about Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez, and Marcell Ozuna. Can they keep up their hot starts? Can Austin Riley, Matt Olson, and Ronald Acuna Jr. get back to their MVP forms? Plus, we talk about the matchup in the NL East between the Phillies and the Braves, as well as where the Braves stack up against the rest of Major League Baseball. Also, some discussions on Ronald Acuna Jr. specifically and Max Fried, plus looking at what potential moves the Braves could make to enhance their team at the trade deadline. That and much more with Buster Olney as the Braves go into a weekend where they'll be playing once again on Sunday Night Baseball. It is an honor and a pleasure to have one of the best known names when it comes to covering baseball. You've known him for many years covering the great sport from his time in New York and with ESPN. Buster Olney is here with us today. Buster, absolute pleasure talking with you, sir. Hope everything is good on your end this morning.
Likewise, Sean. Great to talk with you too.
Let's get right into it, Buster. Obviously, want to talk with you about the Braves. I know here over the past few weeks, you've had the ability to see the Braves up close on Sunday Night Baseball. Not the best results in those games, but we're here in mid-May. The Braves are 13 games above 500, but as good as they are on offense, it's been their pitching actually. The offense has struggled a bit, but the pitching has really been the source of success. When you look at the Braves' success so far this year, Buster, especially against some tough competition, what stands out to you as being different this year, maybe than years past?
Oh yeah, and you framed it perfectly. In fact, I kind of wonder if you were eavesdropping on our Zoom prep call for Sunday Night Baseball, because that your point was exactly the one that I made. That they've, as you and I speak, they've won about 2/3 of their games, and it's been because the pitching. That offense, which was number one in runs last year, number one in home runs, record-setting home runs, has been pretty mediocre to this point, and that is a surprise. But with Chris Sale, the idea that the pitching is leading, despite the fact they lose their best guy, Spencer Strider, is remarkable. I think Alex Anthopoulos did a great job upgrading the bullpen during the course of the offseason. Then you get Chris Sale. Charlie Morton is pitching like it was 5 years ago, early on this year. Max Fried rounding into form. Lopez obviously has been terrific. He starts on Sunday Night Baseball for the Braves this year. But the fact that they have been driven by the pitching, I think, is a surprise compared to what we expected coming into the season.
Absolutely. And it's been great to see, especially with the fact that, through the first 3 weeks, they win 10-2 against last year's ALCS and NLCS opponents. They faced a lot of tough pitching over the past couple of weeks, but you hinted at two big sources of their success: Chris Sale, Ronaldo Lopez. In the lineup, it's been Marcell Ozuna. I don't want to sit here and be, too idealistic, but I think that he's firmly in that MVP conversation, at least in the top five so far. Just when you look at those three guys, Lopez, Sale, and Ozuna, their success has really driven the Braves so far. Do you think it's sustainable going forward for those three guys?
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. Lopez, given the Braves' investment in him, $30 million for, a player who was perceived in the industry to be a reliever, that was pretty good. It told you that they believed in the talent. But, my conversations with Alex Anthopoulos the other day, he mentioned that during the conversation with Lopez, that he told them, look, I would prefer to start, but I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. And that was a selling point for Alex. I think if he hadn't said to them, look, I'll relieve or I'll start, then they may have, in the end, focused on somebody else in the free agent market. But when he, reflected some flexibility, and when they looked at his track record of having a lot of starts, they felt like, okay, this is a guy to invest in. He's obviously been terrific. The day after the Braves traded for Sale, I called Alex and I said, do you really think he's going to be healthy? Do you think? Because he had all those problems in Boston. And Alex was like, absolutely. And I think it was 24 hours later that they agreed to that contract extension. So the Braves backed up that belief in his health with money. And look, Marcell Ozuna is off to a great start. But as you know, because you know the Braves so well, this is not just something that's happened the last 6 weeks. He was really good for 3.5 months last year. He's basically put in a full season of being a dominant player. And I'll echo what you say about the MVP conversation. Look, he's not ahead of Mookie Betts. He's not ahead of Shohei Ohtani. There are probably 2 or 3 other guys in the mix. But if the MVP vote were today, Marcell Ozuna would get a lot of top 10 votes because of how well he started. And he essentially has carried that offense. When you're talking about with Matt Olson off to a slow start and Riley off to a slow start and Ronald Acuna Jr. off to a disappointing start.
Well, that's the perfect segue, Buster, in terms of those three guys. Listen, it's so encouraging to see us 13 games above 500. Pitching being the reason why, Ozuna carrying us. But I know in in another recent interview, you went real in depth about Acuna. Great analysis in terms of the fact, I believe that you said it seems like, every 4 plate appearances, he's trying to get 5 hits, really being over aggressive at the plate. The results have not been there as of yet. But when you talk about those MVP caliber players, Acuna, Olson, Riley, it's been for different reasons why they've struggled so far. But do you think they'll get back up to their MVP level of production? And if they get going, we know the Braves typically get going in June. If those three get going, look out. The Braves really could, reclaim that top team in the majors, I think, without question.
I'm confident that Olson, who, as you know, has just started hitting. He's coincidentally my son's favorite player. So I get Matt Olson updates every single day. from him. And the underlying metrics were suggesting that this is someone who was hitting the ball hard even when he hasn't been getting results. When I spoke to Austin Riley in New York last weekend, he looked at me and he put his index finger and his thumb real close together. He goes, I'm this close. And he's, he talked about how historically he's been a slow starter. He's kind of a slow turning engine, but once he gets going, he seems to be okay. We'll see how he's affected that trajectory by this recent injury that he's had. Ronald Acuna Jr., I'm not quite sure what to make of. Do I think he's going to be a really good player for the season? Yeah, without a doubt. Will he get back to being Ronald Acuna Jr. of 2023 this year? I don't know, because he's so different than he was last year. He's expanding the strike zone. His swing and miss rate is way up. And I know that, that they absolutely believe in his talent. When I talked to people in that organization about, well, that spring training injury, did that kind of slow him down and he's working his way back in? And the feedback I get is no. He's fine. Like, his physical skills are all there. The question is, can he work through this early season slump? And look, what I said about it feels like he's pressing and he's trying to do too much in each plate appearance. That's speculation on my part. Maybe he feels different than that, but that's what I see. Having seen a lot of guys coming off great seasons when the next year they try to replicate what they did.
Absolutely. And it's so hard to replicate. We're seeing, Ellie De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds have this type of season. You don't see it every year, but now you're seeing it back-to-back seasons. Well, Buster, let's talk about it a bit. You hope, the Braves again, I think they had a 75% winning percentage from June on over the past couple of years. But this year feels kind of like 2022, where the Mets just got off to this unbelievable start and the Braves had catch up. The Phillies are right there as well. I know some may want to write off or be skeptical of it a bit because the Phillies haven't really faced that many above 500 teams. They're a really good team. Let's just be honest. What do you make of that race going forward, and how do you think that'll impact the Braves as far as their performance goes? It seems like we're lining up for a really good division race from two of the best teams in baseball.
So every week we get asked by ESPN.com to turn in a 1 through 30 ranking. And for me, the top three have been really easy because I think there are three super teams in baseball. And it just so happens that three of the teams, all three are in the National League, and two of the three are in the National League East. That would be the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Braves. If you asked me today, I would line it up as the Phillies being the best team in baseball based on what I've seen. And we just saw them on Sunday Night Baseball 2 weeks ago. The Dodgers would be 2. But they're climbing, their pitching is coming together, and the Braves right now would be 3. And then there's a gap between those teams, and then you get into the Orioles and the Yankees and some of the other clubs. I think the race is going to be unbelievable. Obviously injuries are going to have an impact on this at some point. The question of whether or not, Riley and Acuna Jr. can get going, whether or not the Phillies, who have an older lineup, as you know, can they hang in there? Can their pitching be as dominant as it's been this year? They were Ranger Suarez as a Cy Young candidate. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. Zach Wheeler we knew of, Aaron Nola we knew about. The Braves bid on him in the wintertime. But man, the Phillies look like an outstanding team to me. And I will tell you, they are driven. I think you'd agree with me, midway through October last year, you looked at the remaining teams that were standing. The Phillies were the best team. They should have won the World Series last year, in my opinion, but the Diamondbacks surprised them, beat them in games 6 and 7. And so the Phillies, I think, spent the winter thinking about, man, we were so close. We were so good. And I think that's driven them this year. So the Braves, it'll be interesting to see how they evolve as the season goes along. And also, it feels like the Phillies have something on the Braves right now in the postseason. Philadelphia, because of what's happened the last 2 Octobers, is going to play the Braves and with a lot of confidence if, in fact, they meet in October. And we'll see if the Braves can overcome that.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's any surprise to Braves fans with how good Ranger Suarez has been against us in the playoffs over the
past. Right.
He's been outstanding. But I will ask Buster, in terms of that, listen, I know we're mid-May. We still got, 75% of the season left. But obviously the Braves offense is what you would first put your hand on as separating them from those other two teams. But do you think the depth of the Braves pitching, especially with how they've loaded up on left-handers, do you think that can make a difference for them this potential postseason compared to the last two, especially with how that pitching is performing right now?
Which is surprising considering the fact that they lost their best guy on paper in Spencer Strider. But with the addition of Sale, who looks dominant, he looks tremendous. And with Lopez, I think being a dominant type starter. Yeah. Now I would say it doesn't feel like the Braves have a lot of margin for error in terms of injuries in their rotation. Inevitably, that seems to manifest every year. So if you're Alex Anthopoulos, you're knocking on wood, every day in your front office, in your, trying to, or just hoping that group stays together. And I suspect the way this race is going to play out, look, the Phillies and Braves will begin to separate themselves from other teams that are in the wild card chase. It'll be interesting to see if the Braves start to make adjustments, give their guys like Charlie Morton extra rest in the second half, give Sale extra rest to try to keep them fresh. You're right. Now, the Dodgers starting pitching, I think as the season goes along, could continue to get better. Walker Buehler just came back. He's been looking good. Clayton Kershaw is going to come back at some point. They've got a lot of pieces. The last couple of years, they've kind of broken apart in the second half of the year, and we'll see if they hold together this year. And right now, and we talked about the Phillies rotation, which right now looks outstanding.
Absolutely. Speaking of outstanding, in his last start, I know that it was before the Mets and Braves last Sunday night. Max Fried in his final, his last year before he hits free agency, he's seeming to round into form. Just what are your thoughts on that? I know that's kind of in the back of everybody's mind right now. Will he be in Atlanta this year? Just your thoughts though on his performance and how you feel that's really going to affect his market, going into the offseason.
First off, Max has demonstrated, what a talented pitcher, what a gamer. He battles and he's terrific. And I think he'll continue to have a great season this year. I don't think there's any chance he comes back to the Braves. And look, and then I say that without having asked him a single question about it. But here's the thing. I think the only chance that Max comes back to the Braves is if he gives them a huge hometown discount. And he doesn't have to do that. Like if you look at the market that's coming up in free agency right now, he's going to wind up being the best guys. And if he were to give the Braves a hometown discount, I'm just making numbers up off the top of my head, that might cost them $50 to $80 million. And we know this about Alex Anthopoulos. He has never paid sticker price for anybody on a long-term deal. It's part of what's made him excellent at his job is that he's gotten all these position players locked up to long-term deals and at lower salaries locked in. The most money that he has paid to any starting pitcher, as is what, $22 million. And I just, Max Fried is going to get more than that if he goes into the free agent market. So I suspect this will be the last year he's with the Braves.
Absolutely. And so that makes it interesting to where, we talk about the fact that you line up the Dodgers, Phillies, and Braves, not even in the National League, being the three best teams in the American League. Asked you what you thought may separate the Braves from those two teams. Well, then with that in mind, what could the Braves do potentially in a few months at the trade deadline? We know Alex Anthopoulos, he's not reactionary. He's not going to sit there and try to top what another team does. He's got his pulse on his team to know exactly what to do. What really stands out to you as being a move or two, not specific names, but the focus of those potential moves to really enhance us to make that World Series push?
And I think because of the injury to Strider, there's an assumption on the part of a lot of fans that, the Braves would go out and add a starting pitcher. Here's the thing. I don't know that Alex is going to go pay the price to get a guy who's actually going to help them, because what are we really talking about? If Sale stays healthy, if Charlie Morton stays healthy, if Max Fried stays healthy, you're essentially talking about buying a starting pitcher potentially for what, 2, 3, 4 starts in October. Are you going to pay from a thinned out farm system, as the Braves have had because they've graduated so many guys into the big leagues? Are you going to pay from a thinned out farm system a high price and outbid teams like the Yankees, maybe the Padres, fill in the blank? Are you going to pay what it's going to cost to get a guy for that small number of starts? We know, you and I sit here today, we got a pretty good idea that the Braves are going to make the playoffs, right? So that's essentially what you'd be paying for. It's just those small handful of starts in the postseason. Knowing Alex, I would be surprised unless it were somebody that he felt like was going to help the rotation next year and the year after, as Max Fried, goes into free agency. Maybe Charlie Morton retires, although right now I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see Charlie Morton back on another 1-year contract. So It just doesn't strike me as being Alex's instinct.
And Buster, and that's great insight because I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of things coming into play this year, but also potentially years after. So, Buster, I know you've seen the Braves on Sunday Night Baseball over the past couple of weeks, once again against the Padres. Chris Sale just talked about, and I feel Chris Sale is a straightforward, honest type of guy. I'm sure you know that from your experience with him. He talked about just how special that Braves clubhouse is. Could you, as we're wrapping up, could you give a little bit of insight just how special, awesome it is to interact with that Braves clubhouse when you get the chance on these Sunday night games and in other times?
So I had a great conversation with Walt Weiss about this the other day, the Braves bench coach, about how in some respects, the Braves have become a destination for players. Veterans want to play with the Braves. I think that Jacob deGrom, absolutely first choice, would have been to sign with the Atlanta Braves, depending on what the price was going to be. If I had to guess, I think Sonny Gray, who signed with the St. Louis Cardinals, his preference would have been to sign with the Braves, depending on the money and how that all worked out. And a lot of that is because of the great culture that they have. Now, this is not necessarily new. I always felt like from the time I've been covering Major League Baseball, you walked into the clubhouse and you had a Glavine, and you had a Smoltz, and you had a Chipper, and a Fred McGriff, Bobby Cox. I mean, you can't remember a time where you walked into the Braves clubhouse. I can't remember a time where I walked out going, oh man, that is a tough group to talk to, and that's inherited by guys like Freddie Freeman, guys like Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, Riley, on and on, Jason Hayward, along with Freddie. And I think that has become a weapon for them. I think that's something that when you're talking about, first off, going through a long season, or when they're talking to free agents, I think that that's a selling point. And the interesting thing is, Alex Anthopoulos would be the first to tell you when he started as a general manager in his days with the Toronto Blue Jays, he didn't believe in clubhouse culture. He didn't place a priority on it. And then Mark DeRosa, someone you know well, and he began to talk about it. And now Alex is like, you know what? I had no clue. I had no idea. And now, and this is what, Walt said to me last week, when they talk about adding a player, there are serious conversations about what kind of guy is this? How does he fit into this group? How does he impact other players? Chris Sale, very much a positive. Marcell Ozuna, when he went through the domestic violence case, slow start last year, I think there was a perception they kept him just because of the money. No, I think the major reason why they kept him was in their internal conversations where, this guy's an incredible positive. Every day he shows up and he's someone who's, bringing it and supporting his teammates. That's important to Alex, and it's how he builds teams.
Absolutely. Well, Buster, thank you so much for taking the time. I feel the ultimate compliment I can offer someone in your profession is that through listening to you, there were several moments where I was just wow when it came to your insight. So thank you and best of luck.
Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you can find Buster, obviously, great work on ESPN at Buster_ESPN on Twitter. Buster, again, thank you for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking with you, and best of luck moving forward.
I appreciate it, Sean. Always fun.
It was an absolute pleasure to get to talk with Buster Olney, who offered some very notable, straightforward, but also positive insight when it comes to the Braves. I want to thank you again for all the recent support when it comes to, the Hammer Territory podcast. You can find us at Hammer Territory across all forms of social media. You can find myself at StatsSAC on Twitter. You can find Stephen at B_Outliers, and you can find the podcast wherever you choose to listen. That's where we'll be for free. Whatever outlet you choose to listen to, that's where we'll be for free. Just hit that subscribe button and you'll get the latest content when it's available. For Stephen Tolbert and Buster Olney, my name's Shawn Coleman. Always a pleasure to be with you. Go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.